It's time for your statewide Alabama weathercast.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Drew McCombs with the Alabama Weather Network, and this is your mid-morning forecast update for the state of Alabama. And looking at some Skywatcher video and pictures from both yesterday and today. This is actually from yesterday afternoon, where we had some rain falling and some thunderstorms happening in especially the northeastern part of the state. And so it was good to actually see some rain in spots. Of course, we actually had a little bit of damage, had some trees down, had a little bit of light damage in some spots, some hail reports, but generally the places that just got the rain, it was good to see that, considering the fact that we hadn't seen a whole lot of it here recently. Sandra Kirkwood in Blevins Gap sent in this picture, and this is they're just south of Huntsville, in the South Huntsville area, at the Blevins Gap Nature Preserve, looking over, it looks like towards the west, with some showers that were falling there yesterday. And then from this morning, Sarah Gilbert in Boldo sent in this sunrise picture, so a beautiful shot there as the sun's coming up there in the sort of the western part of the state. And as we look at our satellite and radar, it is quiet to start off so far this morning. Lots of sunshine out there. A few scattered clouds down near Montgomery and Phoenix City up towards the north. There actually was a little bit of fog in some of the river valleys up into the northeastern corner of the state, but not enough to reach fog advisory criteria. And as far as our Skycam network, you can see it's a nice start there in Florence. It's already 83 degrees, dew points at 66. So again, we're not too bad as far as the humidity is concerned. And it's a few high clouds off in the distance there, but mostly clear skies at this point. And as we move over to Cherokee, you can see a little bit of haze maybe there. We do have a little bit of light smoke. It's hardly detectable, but a little bit of some smoke in the air, so creating a little bit more of a haze. But you can see otherwise blue skies there, and it's 79 degrees. Alabaster, beautiful shot from there at 79 degrees there is too. Dew point's a little bit higher, around 72 degrees, maybe due to having some of the rain around yesterday. And as we move further towards the south, you can see Dozier is at 81 degrees there. Again, not a cloud in the sky, looking nice to start off this morning. And moving down to the coast, or towards the coast, Spanish Fort is at 83 degrees. Looking back towards the bay, again, really hard to find a cloud out there in the southern part of the state for sure. And finally, looking at Gulf Shores, beautiful day at the beach, as has been the case a lot here recently. It's 81 degrees. With a good, again, dew point's not too bad at 68 degrees, and a little bit of a breeze coming out of the east at around 4 to 5 miles per hour. So what we're watching for today and through the weekend, storms will remain isolated. Does look like the better chance of a few isolated showers and storms would be actually in the southern part of the state today, which is a little bit of a change of what we've seen in the last few days. Northern part of the state looks to stay mostly dry. As far as the temperatures, low 90s through Sunday. Expect to continue to be warm or hot for this time of year. And Tropical Storm Gabrielle out in the Atlantic is struggling, and we'll take a look at an update on that here in a little bit. Low temperatures so far today. So we got down to right around 60 degrees in Gadsden, but that's one of the lower spots that we've seen. May not have hit the upper 50s anywhere, at least any of the reports that I've seen, which is maybe the first time we've done that in a little while. You can see we're down 69 degrees in Auburn, 68 in Montgomery. A lot of places where there were with a little bit of a cloud cover, didn't get quite as warm as we got through the overnight period, but again, generally 60s as far as the lows. Looking at our Skywatcher reports, similar story there. Got down to the lowest one that we saw was from Robert Dockery in Elkmont, 61 degrees. Angie Thompson in Aniana got to 63. Gary McGriff in Brooklyn to 66. Lucretia Wyatt in Pell City, 67. And then Harold Trent in Prattville got to 69 degrees. Temperatures right now, though, have warmed into generally the 80s for many spots. It's 83 degrees in Montgomery right now. It's 82 in Selma, 85 in Monroeville. Up in the northeastern part of the state, we're only into the mid to upper 70s at 77 in Anniston, 76 in Gadsden. So not quite as warm in the northeastern corner of the state quite yet. Looking at our dew points, it's a little bit more moisture in the air than we've seen in the last couple of weeks where we've been relatively dry. So we've got dew points still just only in the 60s. Only got one place in the 70s at Gulf Shores right there at the coast is at 70 degrees. But I think in places where there was a little bit of rain that happened, especially in the eastern and northeastern part of the state yesterday, got a little bit more moisture there lingering with that. So that may be part of it as well. But maybe not quite as cool of a morning as we have seen here recently for sure, but still relatively comfortable. And that forecast ISO today won't be as comfortable in the afternoon, as we expect to get into the low 90s across most of the state. So we expect low 90s, maybe even approaching mid 90s towards the south, 93 degrees potentially in Andalusia and Geneva. Up towards the north, maybe some places like Coleman getting only into the upper 80s, but generally low 90s should be the most prominent temperature high that we'll see across the state. Looking at our futurecast for today, so starting off very quiet right now as we get in the afternoon. Again, you can see the northern part of the state mostly stays dry, especially the Tennessee Valley. Might have a scattered shower or two in the Birmingham metro, but it does appear that a better chance of showers is more down in the southern part of the state, near places like Thomasville and Greenville, maybe over towards Auburn as well. Again, this looks very isolated, so most places, even in the southern part of the state, will stay dry today, so don't expect any sort of major change to the general dryness that's been in especially the southern part of the state here recently. As we get into tomorrow evening, a little bit better chance of a few showers on the western and northwestern side of the state. This is looking at right around the time that would be our high school football kickoffs. And you can see, again, most of the state has nothing going on, but maybe a few scattered showers around in a few of those spots. But generally, most places are going to be good. And then things calm down again as we get into Saturday morning and we start off calm and sunny and clear again for early Saturday morning. Today is Thursday. That's Drought Monitor Day. This is last week's look at the Drought Monitor, where we saw a good bit of the drought spread and increase in the western part of the state. This week, you can see pretty big differences as we've spread the yellow area, which is the dry conditions, over most of the state. So there's not many places in the state that are not at least considered dry at this point. And moderate drought has begun to pop up in places like Lee County, Chambers County, Tallapoosa, down in Geneva and Houston counties as well. And so the western side of the state hasn't changed quite as much, maybe spread the moderate drought a little bit, but it looks like, again, the eastern part of the state is really where you start to see the increase. So again, as we continue to stay dry, that's something we'll be paying attention to. Now, as far as the rainfall outlook for the next week or so, not looking very good for most of the state. Most of the state will be below 1/4 inch probably in most cases. Towards the northwest, a little bit better chance by the time we get to about a week from now that we'll end up with maybe over 1/2 inch in some of those spots in the Shoals area. But that'll be as we start to see a little bit of a pattern shift as we get into especially mid next week. So we still are looking at the possibility that our rain chances will start to bump up a little bit as we get to that point. All right, here's your update on Tropical Storm Gabrielle. Again, not looking very healthy right now. You can see the center of circulation right here, but hardly any convection around it. The convection that is nearby is displaced quite a bit off to the east and to the southeast. So struggling with lots of shear and dry air right now. And so it's not looking very healthy. And as it moves from the west-northwest, not expecting to change a whole lot as far as the intensity over the next several days. In fact, it could even weaken further. We might get to a point where it's not even a tropical storm for a period of time. However, the National Hurricane Center does still forecast as it starts to shift and turn off to the northeast that it still will become a Category 1 hurricane at least by early next week. So good thing though, either way, looks like we're expecting it to move away from land, and even at this point, Bermuda is just right there at the edge of the forecast cone, which is if we can, again, avoid hitting any sort of land, that would be nice. But the U.S. at this point does not look like we're going to see any issues with that. Definitely not the Gulf, but there will be some swells of waves and stuff coming in to the eastern coast as we get into next week for sure with that as it's turning off to the northeast. Looking back further to the east, we've got the yellow 20% chance here over the next 7 days for some development as a new wave starts to come off of Africa tomorrow. So again, we'll keep an eye on this, but right now, nothing to be too concerned about. But as we've talked about, it does look like the tropics are starting to kind of heat up a little bit more, so we'll watch it closely. And as far as our weather here, so we're looking at our mid-level pattern right now. We're still under the influence of a little bit of a ridge right now, but as we move on into the rest of this week and into early next week, you'll start to see this trough starting to build in from the northwest will start to influence our area more, which is going to help back down our temperatures a little bit and eventually bring a little bit better chances of rain, especially in the northern part of the state. As we get into the Tuesday time frame of next week, we're even starting to kind of show this little upper level low approaching the area, which would certainly bring us cooler weather and a little bit better chance of some rain. So we'll see how this verifies since we're still about a week out from that, or 5 or 6 days, but hopefully we will see some verification of that will help us in the dry weather department. All right, here's your 7-day forecast for North Alabama. Again, a very small chance of any sort of shower happening in the northern part of the state today. As we get into tomorrow, a little bit better chances, especially in the western part of the state, but then still looking pretty dry for the weekend, highs in the low 90s. But again, you look at early next week into mid next week, we see those temperatures in the afternoon start to back down a little bit, and those rain chances start to go up a little bit with that approaching trough. And so that's going to be what we are looking forward to at this point. And then for South Alabama, still going to be pretty hot the next couple of days with highs only in the low 90s. Again, we do expect a little bit better chance of a few scattered showers today versus what has been seen recently in the southern part of the state. Still nothing significant at this point. So still staying fairly dry and hot through the weekend. And next week, again, we expect to maybe see a little bit of a trend downward in temperatures, maybe a little bit of a trend upward in precipitation chances, but it's really going to probably be more later in the week before we see that in the southern part of the state. Well, that is your Alabama forecast update for now. We'll have another one coming up later on this afternoon on the Alabama Weather Network.